Good day to you, my dear students. Before I proceed discussing to you our lesson for quarter 1, week 1, I have a question for you. Question. Suppose you will have a family trip tomorrow and you want your outfit to suit the weather. Where will you check the weather forecast? Correct. So we are going to check the news about the possible weather for tomorrow. How about if you want to know how to avoid contracting the dreaded COVID-19 virus, where will you get necessary information? That's right. You are going to look from credible and reliable sources found on the internet, or maybe from the websites of our Department of Health or from the World Health Organization. Anything that gives us information or gives us knowledge is our source of information. Our sources of information may be speeches, may be observation, may be from social media, or maybe from people. And the learning competency that we have to master today is to use various sources of information from the news reports, speeches, informative talks, panel discussions, and in everyday conversations and exchanges. So the first source of information is the news reports, which are usually found in newspapers. So the purpose is to inform what is happening in the country and in the whole world. But nowadays, news reports are not seen only in the newspapers, but also they are found on the internet. Like for example, make sure that you are getting the news reports from reliable sources like GMA News Online, ABS-CBN, what else, CNN, and the likes. So what is news? According to a book that I read when I was in the elementary, it says from the book that a news is an account of happenings of interest to a large number of people. So the events, the current events that we are going to report, or not we, but the news reporters must catch the attention of the readers. It must be something interesting. So for the news to be newsworthy, when you say newsworthy, if the event that we are, like for example, we are the reporters, we have to analyze first if the event falls into some categories, because the news has elements, 10 elements to be exact, and we are going to discuss that. So for the news to be newsworthy, it must have one of these elements. The first one is proximity. Proximity is all about location, the nearness of the event. So most of our news here in the Philippines happen within our country. We seldom hear news from Zimbabwe, from Egypt, from Africa, because that is far from us and we are not interested with what is happening there. Unless it is something interesting to us, like for example, there is a bombing in a certain country and some Filipinos died because of that bombing. That will be a news. And then the next one is prominence. Prominence involves celebrities, politicians, famous people, like the recent passing of Cafe Cadena Vlogs, of not Cafe Cadena Vlogs, of but Lloyd Cafe Cadena. Um, a lot of people were actually shocked. They still, until now, they still couldn't believe that he already died. I, for one, I cried when I learned that he already died, because Lloyd Cadena was a good person, a nice person. He helped a lot of people, and he inspired a lot of people around him. And then the next one is timeliness. It's about the freshness of news, because not only Filipinos but people are curious, concerned about the current events than what happened yesterday or last week. But don't get me wrong, but sometimes um, an event that happened, that occurred a long time ago, may hit our headline today. For instance, there was a murder that happened 2 years ago, and the culprit, the murderer, hasn't been caught by the police. And then all of a sudden, a witness suddenly came out, and the witness told the police that the who did the crime. So that will be, it's like the solution to the mystery before. Oddity. Oddity is something that is unusual, from the word odd, unusual. It's something out of the box. I read also from a book somewhere that when when a dog bites a man, that is not a news. But when a man bites a dog, that is news. Consequence. So in here, in consequence, if it's going to, if the news will affect a lot of people, that will be a news. Like for example, if the service there, if there will be a water interruption, that will be a news. And like for example, with all Metro Manila residents will experience water interruption at this hour, it will be a news. All right. Or like for example, the sudden increase in the prices of alcohol because a lot of people were hoarding. It will affect. It will greatly affect um, a lot of us, because alcohol today is a necessity. We need it in order to fight the coronavirus, to avoid contracting the disease. And then the next one is impact. Um, like for example, in impact, if it involves a lot of people, it will have a greater impact. Just like the pandemic that we are experiencing right now. So it has, the virus, the coronavirus has affected people from around the globe. That is why that, that, um, that is why um, every night, diba? Every night we we hear reports about the exact number of who got affected, who the number of those who were healed, who survived, who the number of people who died because of the virus, because it concerns people worldwide. Impact. And then the next one is conflict, because people love to hear about disagreements, about battles or war, because naturally we want to hear something that is unusual. All right. And then human interest. Here, in human interest, um, people are concerned with something that will or involves their emotion. The news report will draw a sort of emotion, like yung mga viral videos that we see on Facebook, even in YouTube, something that is like, for example, just yung mga light, it can also be the cats and dogs that are playing together. They do not fight, because naturally cats and dogs are enemies. But when they learn to coexist, like for example, a kitten is being breastfed by a dog, that is something that will interest humans, that will interest us. And then the next one is scandal. Scandal, th- this will be certainly an a news, most especially if it is done by one of the prominent people, by a celebrity, right? It's not only about sex scandal, but like for example, a misbehavior of a certain public official, just like what Senator Coco Pimentel did when he knew that um, ano nga ba yun? Basta, during that, I don't know if it was his wife who had the virus. Basta, he was exposed to the virus and yet he accompanied his wife to the hospital. So that certainly hit the headline before. And then the last one is extremes or superlatives. So here, naturally, the people are too curious. They are interested in the who is the first, or the best, the longest, or the last, or the highest. This is our from the Guinness World Book of Records. Ayan. Because it's something that is interesting to us. And then the next source of information is the speech. It is a communication or expression of thoughts in spoken words. It usually persuades the audience into the topic being talked about. Of course, usually this speech is done publicly or in front of many people. It says there it usually persuades the audience into the topic being talked about. Um, you want the audience to accept your own point of view. But there are three types of speeches, three basic types. The first one is the informative speech. Here, the purpose is to inform, all right? The next one is persuasive speech. You want the audience to accept your point of view. Of course, you give reasons. And then the speech for special occasion. So the speeches that are given in birthdays, um, weddings, it can be funerals too, etc. But we are going to focus only here on informative speech. The parts of the informative speech are, the first one is the introduction. It sets the tone of the entire speech. So your introduction will tell if your speech is gonna be interesting, if it's going to be funny or serious. This is actually important because um, because you want to catch the attention of your of your audience. You don't want to give a speech if they will not hear you up to the end, right? And it says that it should be brief and to the point. Meaning brief, it means short. To the point, meaning um, you should not waste any words. You must hit your points immediately. What is your speech all about? You must do that in your introduction. And the next one is, of course, the body. It contains the bulk of information in your speech and needs to be clearly organized. So, like for example, your speech will be how to avoid contracting the dreaded coronavirus. So in your introduction, to make it interesting, you may crack a joke about it, ask a question, and then in the body, you are going to narrate how to, or you will give points how to avoid contracting the virus. Of course, it must be organized. There must be the ideas, or your ideas must be coherent with each other. They must be related with one another. And then the last part is the conclusion. It wraps up the information and providing final comments about your chosen topic. So in the conclusion, actually, you reiterate or you repeat your thesis statement. By the way, your thesis statement is the main point of your speech. And then in the conclusion also, you must give a good conclusion so that the point of your speech will linger on the minds of your audience, even after your speech. And then the next source of information is the informative talks. So it means they center, informative talk center on talking about people, events, process, or things. So in informative talks, um, of course, the purpose is to inform an audience about one of these subjects without being persuasive. So just like, but in speech, diba, there is another type of speech wherein you persuade. In here, in informative talk, you just want to give information. You just want the audience to be educated with your chosen topic. Actually, what we have right now can be considered as an informative talk. All right. So the last source of information that we're going to discuss is the panel discussions. So the panel discussions involve a group of people gathered to discuss a topic in front of an audience, typically at scientific, business, or academic conferences, fan conventions, and on television shows. So when you say panel, it means it's a group of people. So they are gathered together to discuss a topic. So the panel discussions usually happen at a scientific conference, like for example, when you say scientific, maybe they are discussing about how to cure certain diseases, and then in business conferences naman, they are discussing the latest trends, the trends in business, or something that they can share with fellow businessmen their success. Academic conferences, these are sometimes called as the research conference, wherein the researcher presents his or her research, and then the audience can throw questions about the research. And then fan conventions, it is also known as a fan meeting. Like for example, the fans of a certain like movies, series, comics, books, or actors, they are gathered together to about a certain topic, to meet experts, ayan, to discuss what they need to discuss, or what they love to discuss. And for example, it's a fan conventions on manga series, and then they're going to discuss about the characters there, perhaps. And then it is usually include a moderator who guides the discussion and sometimes elicits audience questions with the goal of being informative and entertaining. So in the panel discussion, there is a moderator, or if it's a talk show, there is, like for example, there is a host. So the moderator um, comes to the audience and asks them questions, and ask them and let them throw in their questions rather. And then that ends our lesson for today. So this lesson will be uploaded to my YouTube account, Cecilia Yaron. Please subscribe to my channel. I hope that you learn about the various sources of information. Thank you. By the way, these are my sources, and the images I used in this presentation were taken from ClipArt and from Wikipedia. Thank you.